If I asked you to think about a person who presses your buttons and makes you angry, I'm quite sure you can come up with at least one, if not many, examples. And that's the reality. In life, we have people who really press our buttons and at times make us angry. Today, we're going to explore the question, how do you calm yourself down when you're feeling angry? Today we're going to explore 8 ways of dealing with our anger. 4 will be in the moment when we're actually feeling angry. And 4 will be in that process when we're stewing about something and our anger is building. Stay tuned because I also want to offer you a free gift at the end of this video, which is a way of exploring what triggers our anger in the first place. So let's explore 4 ways of dealing with our anger in the moment whenever that anger is beginning to show. The first way is to notice the signs in our body. Very often we live life from the neck upwards. We value our intellect. We value what we bring with our brains. But our body is also a source of incredible wisdom, and especially when it comes to our emotions and anger in particular. You see, when we become attuned to our body, we begin to pick up signs that we are getting angry. And why is that important? Because when we pick up the signs in our body, we're able to intervene a little bit earlier and to have greater choice in how we deal with that anger. So what are some of those signs? Well, we begin to see tension in our bodies as we become more angry. Sometimes that tension is accentuated and actually it becomes a closed fist in our hands. We begin to feel heat throughout our body. Feeling angry is almost like a pressure cooker. It builds up and it builds up, and with that, increased heat. We see signs of our heart beginning to beat faster, heavier breathing, and also signs perhaps of perspiring. All of those are signs of that heat that's building up in our body. So begin to reflect a little bit. What are some of the signs that you feel whenever you're getting angry? And take some time to really explore that. What parts of the body do you feel them in? And can you become more aware as your body begins to show you, what? I'm getting angry. The second area builds on the first, and that is to resist the temptation to have the first behavior you think about. You see, anger is almost like a train. When it begins to build up, it creates a momentum that's very hard to stop. And so therefore, whenever we've begun to notice the signs in our body, we're able to put a stop and say, okay, I recognize these signs. Let me just hold back. And that can be as simple as taking a deep breath, beginning to recognize if I feel this, then I should just stop for maybe 3 or 4 seconds, take a deep breath. And as I take that breath, just realize there's actually nothing you need to do right now in the moment. Just remain as calm as you can, hold on to that breath, and then choose an action, a word, a behavior perhaps, that is more thoughtful and deliberate. The third area is breathing. You've just heard me say before that you can take a breath and hold that breath. You also want to explore different breathing patterns. These patterns can help us move away from our anger and help us introduce a more calmness in the body so that we can be more reflective in the response. 2 breathing exercises that are really helpful in this domain is the box. And the box really is a breathing pattern, which is 4. If you just think of a box, which is equal sides, if you choose a number, say 3 seconds, then what you do is you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, and then hold that for 3 seconds. That rhythmic breathing pattern can really be helpful whenever we begin to feel the emotion of anger. Because anger is all about ratcheting up our energy, and it's all about increasing our breathing pattern. And this breathing pattern, this rhythmic breathing pattern, or 3-3-3-3, can really help us reduce some of that energy we're feeling from the anger. Second breathing pattern is 4-8-7. This directly tries to introduce the opposite breathing pattern that we're feeling. You see, whenever we feel anger, one of the things that happen is our breathing becomes more shallow, it becomes more focused, and it becomes much quicker in the moment. This helps us move from fight or flight into an opposite way of breathing, which helps us calm down. And so that pattern is breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 8 seconds, and then breathe out for 7 seconds. Now at the beginning, you may not see an impact, but if you keep doing it for at least a minute, you'll be amazed at how your breath begins to change. And it's also helping the body be informed. You know, at this moment in time, we're going to move away from the anger and we're going to introduce a little calm into the situation. And then the fourth area is to walk away. You know, at times our anger can get the best of us, and that's just part of being human. And maybe we don't feel we have the time to introduce some breathing in the moment. And so what we might want to do when we recognize that our anger is building, and to recognize the fact that I'm just not in the mood for a discussion, is just to call a timeout and to walk away. Very often in the midst of anger, we say things that we regret, we behave in ways that we regret. And one of the ways perhaps to avoid this is just to recognize that this is not the space of the time that I am in at the moment to have a discussion I need to have. And so therefore it's best for me just to walk away. Now with one caveat, the walking away needs also to build in a time when the discussion needs to happen. Because walking away used too much actually just leads to avoidance. And so what we want to try and do is to walk away in the moment and then to come back and to have the conversation when we're calmer and we're ready to think a little more logically, and we have the energy as well to have that conversation. Hopefully you're enjoying this video, and before we move on to the 4 areas that we're going to look at when your anger is stewing, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, to press the bell. You'll be informed when new videos come out every week on different areas of emotional intelligence, helping you become more emotionally intelligent at work and at home. The next 4 areas to explore in helping us control our anger are really dealing with anger that is stewing over a longer period of time. Think about it. Are you the type of person when someone says something to you, perhaps you don't react in the moment, but you carry that with you? And what you begin to notice is you keep reflecting on that, and your anger builds up slowly and slowly and slowly. And the danger here is that that anger is going to reach a point where it becomes explosive and can almost surprise you. I remember my father growing up had a stewing anger within him at times. He was a very pleasant person, lots of joy, but there are times, you know, whenever he would reach a point where his anger would come out. And upon reflection, he was always quick to say, you know, I'm really sorry, I should have dealt with that in the moment. And I think there are many people who are like that. And so therefore, one of the points I'd like to explain is that when that anger is stewing, that's the time to intervene and to help us perhaps deal with the anger in a different way. So what are those 4 points? The first area is to ask, is it reasonable? Is the feeling we have reasonable? I always like to say, if it was brought before a court, is there enough data to convict? You know, sometimes we make up stories about a situation that's happened. And what we're really doing is making up stories and not grounding it in data that's observable. And so therefore, to be able to step back and to ask ourselves, what am I feeling? What am I angry about? And is it reasonable? Are there other questions I need to ask? Is there more data I need to ground this assessment I'm making that makes me angry? The second area to explore is asking if this emotion of anger is really covering another emotion. Because very often what happens is the first thing we experience is anger. But really there's a deeper emotion that should be explored. You know, sometimes it's hurt, sometimes it's sadness. And so therefore to be able to peel off from the anger and ask, is there something deeper that this anger is leading me to? Is there something else that I need to explore as this anger is stewing within me? The third area is to have some movement. Now this works for both anger in the moment and anger that's stewing as well. As anger is stewing, introduce some movement. Some people introduce dance, and they find that dancing in the moment can really help them move out of the anger. Go for a walk, work out. That physicality can help us move from some of the emotionality that we're feeling in the moment, and can really help us release some of the tension that's happening. And then finally, as the anger is stewing within us, instead of reflecting on the hurt or the cause of that anger, try and move to some solution thinking. Try and move to a situation of what would resolve this? What's the missing conversation that needs to happen? What is it that I'm looking for? What would resolve this feeling? And therefore, try and move to a situation where you're actually setting up that solution. So often, the emotion of anger is because someone's getting in the way of a goal that we want. And there's a missing conversation that has to happen. If we can realize what is that missing conversation, prepare for it and have it in a methodical and calm way, then we're really helping ourselves reach a situation where that anger is dissipated and it doesn't explode. In society at times, anger is considered a negative emotion. And the way I like to look at it is anger is not a negative emotion. Emotions are not positive or negative. Rather, emotions are conveyors of information which inform us that something important is happening to us. And so in that spirit, whenever we feel anger, either in the moment or ever our anger is stewing, it's an opportunity for us to reflect a little bit more. Now, I promised you at the beginning of the video a free gift which would help you explore your emotional triggers. You see, we are people of habit, and very often our anger comes from similar triggers. And so therefore, one of the ways that we can empower ourselves is to really reflect on those triggers and to realize the trigger patterns in our life. So if you scroll below, you'll find a link to that worksheet which will help you explore your emotional triggers. And if you've enjoyed this video, I invite you to explore the next one, which is called How to Manage Your Anger Triggers.